Sounds good. Already done.
Tim is not going to make it today, so I think we'll just move the agenda to next week.
Okay. So I guess what I was thinking today, we have the two topics from first with a cryo update from Renal, and then Josh, you had your topic you want to talk through, and then want to reserve time for any PRs that folks want to bring up that needed to get review or attention for 110, just to make sure it was on everyone's radar. So Renal, do you want to
sure.
an update on cryo now? And
yeah. Can you hear me? I'll try to share my screen.
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yep.
Okay. So it's a very simple and boring update for cryo. So 19X is being updated based on feedback that we get from production, like minor bugs and feature requests that would improve it. So we've made several minor releases on the 19 train. 198 was the last release. For 110, Cryo Master is rebased to release 110 branch of Kubernetes upstream. And we should be able to cut a release, an RC0 by the end of the week. We are passing all the tests with 110. Our Kube dashboard result reporting is currently blocked on an upstream issue in the test infra repo for a couple of months. So we will appreciate some help in pushing that forward. So I'll put a link to that PR over there. So some changes basically need to be made so that our results could be parsed, because we're not running on GCP, we're running on AWS and trying to publish results. And the second part is community. So cryo community seems to be thriving. We are getting more and more contributors. We are up to 74 contributors right now. And if you take a look at the pulse from last week, we have 27 commits going in when we are having a hard time keeping up with PR reviews. So I think that's a good sign. And one more thing I wanted to bring up was cutting releases of CryCTL that correspond to Kube versions. So it is easy for someone to pick the right version of CryCTL. Right now, I see that we do have branches, but it'll be good to have like a 19, 110 and so on for CryCTL. So someone can easily pick that and make it work with a runtime on the other side. So that's all I really had. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thanks.
Well, thanks, Ronald. I guess, Josh, do you want to go next?
Yep. Howdy. Josh Burkus. I've been occasionally on Sig Node for other reasons, mostly because I'm involved with the KubeVirt and Kata containers teams. But I am here today as a representative of the Contributor Experience Sig. And the Contributor Experience Sig is sort of meta Sig, as in we are here to make sure to make contributing to Kubernetes as efficient and as pleasant as possible. And in this context, the members of Contribex have been going to the various SIG meetings to talk to the SIGs in their own meetings about various things that were going on and asking for feedback. So I'd like to go over a few things. First of all, it probably has not escaped your notice that the use of labels and LGTM and approval workflows and a bunch of other GitHub and bot management stuff has been kind of a work in progress and more than a little bit inconsistent. You know, both sort of across Kubernetes and from release to release. We're trying to actually make that consistent and rational, as well as adding new capabilities like, for example, bot commands for milestones, so that it's no longer necessary to be a GitHub admin in order to add or remove milestones from an item. However, that obviously affects everything that everyone does in their contributions to Kubernetes sort of mechanically. And so we wanted to make sure that you're aware that these sort of changes are going on and where you'll hear about them and where to give feedback on them. What we're going to be doing is when we need to make a change or when we need to clarify something that already existed but people weren't sure how to use, that's going to be published with at least 3 days, and in most cases like a week or so of notice on the Contrib-X, Sig Leads, and Kubernetes dev mailing lists. We will also bring it up on the Thursday community meetings to make sure that everybody knows about it. So someone or someone from Sig Node, as many people, should be on one of those forums, probably the community meeting Kubernetes dev, just to make sure that you hear about these things in advance. And if they're going to break a workflow for you, that you can bring it up in advance before we actually push the change through to automation. In addition, one of the things specifically that's going to get settled in hopefully the next couple of weeks, for example, is auto approval, because this has been an alternate problem for some SIGs. Right now, automation has you sort of aggressively auto approve things, as in if you are an owner that is listed in the owner file and you make a PR, it is automatically approved. If you LGTM, it is automatically approved. And not everybody wants it to be automatically approved. But for the people who do want it to be automatically approved, they don't necessarily want to take the extra step. And so that's going to need a community decision to settle, because having two different workflows within Kubernetes would be even worse than the drawbacks of either workflow. So please participate in that discussion in one place or the other. We've also published some issue triage guidelines, again, for you to read and for you to comment on and or correct. I've linked those from your minutes. This is the beginning of trying to document all of the sort of de facto Kubernetes workflows. So again, if we've gotten something really wrong as far as Sig Node workflow is concerned, we want to have your feedback on that. Second thing, contributor guide. We have a new and updated version of the contributor guide. This is a document on how to contribute to Kubernetes in terms of CLAs and contributions and how do you announce things and that sort of thing and other stuff. Please review and make comments on that document, again, linked from your meeting minutes. We want to make sure that what we're saying in there does apply equally to all SIGs, and we need your help to make that happen. The third and the most important thing from my perspective that I wanted to talk about here is actually mentoring. Now, we have several different mentoring programs. And so mentoring is how we get from having Kubernetes users to having Kubernetes maintainers, and all of those sort of steps along the way. And one of the biggest needs the project has right now is to move people sort of up from being contributors to being reviewers and eventually owners. So we have a number of different mentoring programs. The two that I've highlighted and called in your note. One is an easy participation one called Meet Our Contributors. And that takes place once a month. It's got currently 2 different time slots where it's a combination of Slack, Twitter, and a Zoom meeting so that we can reach as many people as possible. for people who are interested in contributing and that sort of thing. It's really helpful to have representatives from all SIGs. It's really helpful to have a representative from Sig Node on Meet Our Contributors for a couple of reasons. One is you can talk about what you do and what Sig Node does. The second is people do show up there who are saying, hey, we now use Kubernetes at work. I'm interested in contributing, but I'm not sure where to start. It's a way for you to potentially snag new contributors for Sig Node. And sometimes people are already interested in contributing to an area of responsibility for Sig Node, in which case they need guidance. The second thing that I really wanted to talk about is group mentoring. So one of the things that we've really been trying to do is to try to move people up the ladder from contributor to reviewer, because if you look at overall project stats, you see that one of our biggest bottlenecks in terms of getting things into Kubernetes is the delay in getting stuff reviewed and committed. And the only way that's going to happen is if we move people from being, regular or irregular contributors to being reviewers and owners. And the way to speed that up is mentoring. Particularly in Sig Node, we have had a lot of new contributions from the virtualization folks. Based on where those projects are going, those contributions are only going to increase. I just linked from the a DevStats chart, a new one from the minutes. This has a calculation of relative SIG workload based on incoming PRs. As you can see there, Sig Node is number 4 currently in relative workload in terms of the number of PRs coming in. What this is a calculation of how many PRs you have coming in relative to their size tag, and then divided by the number of people who are actively doing reviews on GitHub.
So is this covering all projects, not just Cube, but also?
No, this is just KK. Because for the other repos, people don't consistently apply SIG tags.
Okay.
So it would be misleading if we included the other repos. Also, there's some repos like SIG docs that tend to have a lot of very tiny PRs, things that are like 1 line, 2 lines, and that would also skew the stats somewhat. So this is just KK. Now, Sig Node is number 4 on here right now. I actually originally created this chart because of what I was seeing in terms of Sig Node workload about 3 or 4 weeks ago when Sig Node was number 1 on the chart. And by a pretty significant margin. Things have actually slowed down somewhat, or you guys have gotten through some of your backlog. Now, we have a whole bunch of virtualization folks coming in wanting to combine virtualization and Kubernetes. They want to push a bunch of changes in Kubernetes. I've reached out to those teams and said that, hey, this is all going to really bottleneck unless you put people in the pipeline to also become reviewers for Sig Node. Several people are interested, and the next step is for them to get some mentoring in how to review things for Sig Node. So I'm reaching out to you as Sig Node to join the group mentorship program to, on some schedule, and to start, let's mentor some of these new folks who are contributing to your area of responsibility into becoming reviewers so that they're not just generating extra workload for you, but actually helping resolve it as well.
Yes, I think
the group mentoring program, and you can also contact me about it. Yeah?
So I think, for that topic in particular, I guess one of the things I'd be curious about with Contribex is I think a lot of the groups that are coming to Sig Node about their various interest areas may actually have their work get focused more on a particular sub-project and not necessarily Cube proper itself. So, so it'd be curious if that's also happening with all the other SIGs, as more and more work is getting out of Cube, what the trend there is. And then the other thing I was going to comment on was like, I think in the past in Sig Node where we've been effective, we typically when we do like release planning, whether that was in the Sig or say in the resource management work group that did related work, like pairing up feature development with new contributors and having dedicated reviewers has been good. I think we had people grow. I guess for the groups in question that you're referencing, like it needs to go back to like, what is the change that needs to be made? And if we can align those changes with them doing the work, getting some experience, and then us pairing up a review, that seems to be the best process we've done in the past. I don't know, Yuju or David, what you feel, but.
Well, I guess, I mean, my question for you is, do you feel like you have enough reviewers to deal with the workload that you're seeing with a potentially increased workload in the future? The stats seem to indicate otherwise, but maybe they're deceptive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any SIG probably feels like they have enough reviewers. I'm not talking about any sort of change in how you pair up with reviewers, et cetera. I'm talking about sort of getting more reviewers into the pool to be paired up with by taking people who are contributors now, who are good, who are contributors now, and giving them the knowledge, particularly the knowledge of how Sig Node does things, and what issues you need to look at, and what other sort of side effects you need to look for, and all kinds of other things in order to be good reviewers. I mean, obviously, they're not going to review their own stuff, so they need to have some understanding of kubelet and all of the other things in order to help with reviewing other people's stuff.
Hey, Josh. This is Stephen Day from Docker. How you doing? I just wanted to ask a small question about. So, looking at the requirements for a reviewer, there's a lot of time sink, and as far as my contributions to core Kubernetes projects, they're pretty thin. It's mostly just discussion, and I don't even think I've filed a bug, but I have done a lot of review and work in the wider ecosystem with Docker and Containerd and stuff like that. Is there any kind of way that I could help to kind of fast track to help with reviews and stuff like that, or would you recommend that I go through the process of going through a contribution and then becoming a reviewer to kind of help out with that way?
The thing is, this is really up. It's really up to the SIG. We're offering the group mentoring program and other mentoring programs in order to supply structure. In order to say, hey, because for a lot of SIGs, they're like, okay, we have some contributors that are interested in becoming reviewers. We have a couple of owners who can spend some time this quarter helping them out, but we're not really sure where to go from there. Because in a lot of cases, for a lot of SIGs, the people who are owners now, who are doing 80, 90% of the reviews, are in that position because they were there shortly after the founding of Kubernetes, and not because they ever went through any kind of reviewer training. So it's very easy not to know what things you know before you get started trying to actually show somebody else how to do it. So, as far as I'm concerned, speaking for ContribX, there is no specific requirement on the number of contributions you need in order to start becoming a reviewer. I'm fine with 0. But it's up to the SIG where they want to get started with us.
Yeah, I actually think, Josh, a hard and fast number is difficult. One of the things I think that we should do as a SIG here is I think I talked about this with Don last week, we need to write our charter for the SIG that kind of describes the way we work now and I guess the way we aspire to work in the future. I think a key element in that charter should be what measure of contribution you need to appear in either a reviewer or an ownership role. I'm curious if ContribX has thought about a templated model for that would apply well across SIGs, or if you think it's like a per SIG thing that needs to be worked out.
Well, if you actually look at item number 4 under contributor experience in your agenda, you notice there's a link to the steering committee's SIG charter template. So thank you for segueing into that. In terms of...
So like the actual template, I know that Phil Whitrock has put together, I don't think it goes into like the depth of you reviewed X number of PRs. I don't even think we have the tooling in place to know how many like passive reviews an individual has done. And I definitely don't think it went into like, may not have said anything more than just like demonstrated sustained contribution, but
yeah,
like the kubelet was going through a lot of changes, obviously early in its formation, and now the changes are much more targeted, one would hope. And so I could see it being a challenge to grow a reviewer pool with the same number of like net commit count numbers, but like sympathize with Stephen's question. I'm just trying to see if there's a good metric that other SIGs you've worked with have come up with.
Okay. By the way, I just posted another chart in there. One of the things I work on in Contribex is the stats, etc. And we literally just yesterday added a chart where you can search for review contributions of an individual by GitHub handle. So you can see both we can see both reviews and LGTMs by time. And you can narrow it down to a specific repository. So in terms of guidelines for the amount of review activity, et cetera, that somebody needs to have, I don't think that's been pretty much left up to the SIGs. That would actually be a good topic for discussion. Can I actually ask you?
And I guess review of what kind, right? Like to me, there's a difference between reviewing like a CAT proposal of some kind versus code cleanups. So
yeah, and right now that's been sort of left up, completely freeform left up for the SIGs. So I would actually ask you, the next contributor experience meeting is it this Wednesday? Yeah, I think it's actually tomorrow. I will not be at it because I'm on a plane, but it is actually tomorrow, and I would rather have this discussion there or on the mailing list.
okay.
You'd be willing to raise that?
I don't know how everyone else feels, but like I think I've been talking about this with Don probably for a while.
Yeah.
That we grow both the reviewer pool and the owners pool, at least responsibly. And like Stephen, your experience is wide and deep, right? So like it'd be great if we can account for that when looking to grow the base of folks who can help the broader community. I just don't know if anyone has like the clear metric or guiding principle in mind that can seem fair. And I think fairness ends up being like a thing that can cause tensions. And so I'm just wondering if others have explored similar problems.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer for that. Like, I don't even have an example of a SIG charter that I feel addresses those issues. Which is why I'd like to actually bring that up for discussion in ContribX, because yeah, there's the trade-off between fairness and sort of realism, because fairness says we should have rules down on paper that apply to everybody. Realism says all reviews aren't equal, all contributions aren't equal. There's like 17 different indices of quality that we actually care about, and therefore coming up with rules that really cover the situation of, is this person ready to be an owner or not? Be very difficult.
Josh, hi.
Yeah.
Can I chime in here? This is Dims. So one example is there is a owner's aliases. There is a Sig Node reviewers, but there is no Sig Node approvers, for example. So if we go through the hierarchy of directories and sprinkle them with Sig Node reviewers and approvers in different places, then the people who are coming in will automatically get pinged with all the bots picking off stuff from here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way to make people aware of which PRs that they need to go look at, which issues are showing up, and spread the load essentially, right? Right now, individuals are there in all the files, so and a lot of people have declared GitHub notification bankruptcy as well. So that this might help as well, just as a tool.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have. But I urge you to actually bring that up at the ContribX meeting. If not this week, then 2 weeks from now, or bring it up in the mailing list if you don't want to attend the meeting.
Yeah, well, thanks, Josh, for giving the update. And, I think I'd really like to see us have a way of growing the participation in the SIG. So if folks have interesting ideas on how we can look to do that unique to the SIG, I think we should have that discussion in the mailing list, or maybe we can dedicate a time, maybe when Dawn gets back, to get that tied into the charter. The last topic I wanted to bring up today was if there are any PRs that required review that were not getting attention for 110 that people wanted to bring up now. And if not, then I guess we could adjourn and meet again next week. All right, sounds quiet today. All right, well, if there's no other topics, I guess we'll meet again next week. Thank you for everyone who presented, and I'll get this uploaded to our regular playlist so people can review it afterwards. So thanks again, and see you all next week.
See you. See you.